I can't believe the winter holiday is almost over. I also can't believe this is my 13th spring semester as a teacher. That's crazy. Hi, my name is Megan. I am an ESL teacher in China. I've been teaching for over 10 years. I'm also getting my PhD in education, and I make videos that are focused on making your classroom as fun, engaging, practical, and useful for your students as possible. Welcome to another episode of Teacher Talk, where we just sit with a cup of coffee and talk about all things teaching. Today, I want to talk about my 2025 goals. Now, I've been teaching for over 10 years, but that doesn't mean that I don't stop setting goals, because I want to be the best teacher I can be. And I know that during the semester, everything gets crazy busy. I like to know that I have some goals that I want to focus on throughout the semester before we head into the classroom, but I also know that there are always things that I can improve. And so if I set these goals or these intentions at the beginning of the semester, hopefully by the end of the semester, I'll have become a better teacher, even if it's just incremental progress. So let's chat a little bit about goals. Maybe you can take some of my goals and use them for your own, or maybe this will just help you think of new ideas that you want to do for your goals for the next semester. Goal number 1 is something that I have had on my list in the past, and I want to keep working with for my new students, and that's I want to just let loose a little bit, and I want to have better rapport with my students. I, especially after COVID, really got into the mental space of like, this is serious teaching. I need to give you serious tips. We need to make serious progress. And in doing so, I kind of forgot to focus more on building rapport with students and getting to know them and creating that class atmosphere where everything feels very open and it feels like we have open communication. This next semester, I will have a lot of freshman classes. So I've never had them before, they've never had me before, and so it's a great chance for me to try to get to know them, build that rapport early on in the semester. The semester is always so busy at the beginning, and sometimes I forget to do this right at the beginning, but I want to do that this semester. I actually have a whole video about how to build rapport with your students. If you want, I'll link it in the cards above and down below. You could check that out if that's something that you also want to do this semester. I find that the semesters where I really prioritize building this kind of open, comfortable atmosphere right at the beginning, where I focus on building rapport, the entire semester just goes so much smoother because students are not as shy, they're not as nervous, they're not as worried, they come to me if they have problems. It just creates so much of a better class atmosphere. Goal number 2 is I want to learn all of their names as quickly as possible. I will probably have around 300 freshman students. That's a lot of names, but I want to learn them as quickly as possible. So I've written down in parentheses in 2 weeks. That means in 2 classes, because I only see my students once a week. So hopefully after my second class with them, I'll know everybody's names. Now, during COVID, I got a little bit out of practice of this because we weren't seeing each other like face to face every day in the classes. But this is something that I find is often overlooked, but makes a huge difference. Not only does it make things like taking attendance so much easier so that I can focus on the real things in class, I can focus on teaching, I can focus on how the students are responding, but I also find it helps with building that rapport. Also, my classes really focus on participation. So I tell my students that every class I'm looking around the room and I'm writing down the students who are doing a really excellent job with participation and the students who aren't. And sometimes they don't believe me because they don't think that I can memorize all of their names, but I do know their names, and I want to show them right from the beginning, I do know your name. I am going to keep track of your participation score. I have a ton of videos about this on how to learn students' names. I have a whole video just about how to learn their names. I have another video all about the name game, which is something I will do on the first day of class to really solidify the majority of students' names. This actually came from my very first summer teaching in China before I taught here full time. I just came for like a summer, just a volunteer experience. And every summer, my friends and I would challenge each other to see who could memorize all the students' names faster and faster. So we just spent those summers coming up with techniques and ways that we could learn the names faster. And who knew it was going to be so beneficial for me so many years later, but I'm very, very thankful that I know how to learn students' names quickly. Goal number 3 is I want to be more open with the students about what we are doing and why we are doing it. Sometimes I forget to do this because I know as a teacher why we are doing something. And last semester I started to realize that the students weren't really getting the point of some of our activities. So by all of that, I mean, I just want to let the students be more aware of why we are doing certain activities in the class. You know, when I say turn and talk to your partner, it's so you have a chance to simulate a real world conversation. When I say talk for 3 minutes about this topic, it's not just to waste 3 minutes of class time, it's to make sure that you can carry on a conversation that's longer than 10 seconds out in the real world. I did notice a problem that happened with my freshman students last semester. I would give them a discussion topic and they would immediately grab their phones and go to AI and ask AI a question. And we're talking about simple questions here. The question would be something like, how can you be healthier in your daily life? And they would grab their phones and ask AI. And I'm like, we don't need to be asking AI this. The point of this is to see what vocabulary and see what language you already know. On the spot, can you communicate with someone else? Can you simulate a real world conversation rather than just having two students both looking at their phones, both looking at AI? I think they were so worried about like getting everything right. But in this conversation, it doesn't matter if you get everything right. It doesn't matter if you make a grammar mistake. The point of it is to see if you can communicate spur of the moment with someone sitting next to you. And so last semester, once I said that to the students, then they were like, oh, okay. All right. And it like took away the pressure. So I want to just be a little bit more open with students talking about why we are doing this. We are doing this exercise to practice our adjectives. We are doing this exercise to have a smoother conversation. We are doing this exercise to see how good your grammar is, to be really, really clear about what the focus is for different activities. Along with that, I want to be more open with students when it comes to the grading process. At the beginning of every semester, the first class, I lay out all of the details for my grading procedure. I tell them exactly what I'm going to grade them on. Ooh, you can hear the fireworks in the middle of the day. So I lay all of that out on the very first day of class, but you know what? Students are barely functioning on that first day, and I find that they forget very easily those things that I told them. So I just want to make sure the students are crystal clear on how exactly I'm going to be grading them. So by the end of the semester, when they see their score, there's no question. They know exactly why they got that score. So one way I'm going to do this is I think I'm going to make a PDF of all of the grading criteria and send that out in our group chat after the first class. That way they can check it, they can review it any time. Maybe I'll even send it again like mid-semester to give them a reminder. I think I also want to give them examples to really show them what I'm talking about, because a lot of the students just think if they can do well on the final exam, they're good to go. But actually at our school, 40% of their final score is their final exam, and students think that sounds like a lot. But 60% is their classwork. So their attendance, their participation, homework, projects, things like that. And so I think I want to show them an example. Like if you got an 80 in your participation and you got a 90 in your final exam, what does your final score actually end up being? To show them the fact that working hard every day in class is more important than just doing well on the final exam. I just want to give them examples to show them exactly how their grades could turn out if they make different choices. I teach at a university. I tell my students all the time that you are adults. You can choose the score you want in this class. I'm not over here like giving scores out to my favorite students and my least favorite students. It's all a system. If you come to class, you get this many points. If you don't come to class, you lose this many points. And I just want students to understand how objective the scores truly are and how much control they have over their score. Goal number 5 might sound a little bit strange, but my goal is to broaden the class topics. And maybe this this is something that would be helpful for you, or maybe the opposite would be helpful for you. Maybe the better thing for you in your classes would be to get more specific. It really depends on your textbook. I find that usually the problem is that the textbook is too broad rather than the textbook being too specific. What do I mean by this? I mean, often you'll open an ESL textbook and it will just have the topic of like hobbies, food, travel. Those topics are so broad and such like surface level. What are we really talking about when we talk about travel? Are we talking about airport vocabulary? Are we talking about using adjectives to describe the scenery? Are we talking about culture? Are we talking about famous landmarks? Are we talking about creating a packing list? Are we talking about creating a budget and creating an itinerary? There are so many different ways you could teach a travel lesson. To be honest, you could probably teach a travel lesson like 5 or 6 times and each time have a different focus. So a lot of times I find that ESL textbooks need to be more specific. You have to take the textbook and turn it into a more specific lesson. However, for my textbook last semester and again this semester, the topics are so molecularly small and specific. For example, last semester we had a topic that was talking all about GMOs in food. Okay, that's way too specific. And this semester I have topics that are talking about like one specific market crash in Wall Street. Last semester, I just thought like, okay, well, how can I make talking about GMOs interesting? This semester, I want to zoom out a little bit more and say, okay, well, this chapter is talking about GMOs, but let's actually just talk about health and nutrition. Yeah, this one chapter is talking about one specific stock market crash 20 years ago. Let's talk about budgeting and money management tips. Not only is that more interesting, but it's also probably more applicable for students. Goal number 6, this is something I'm continuing over from last semester. Last semester, one of my goals was to add in more culture, and I'm so glad I did this. This was one of the best parts of last semester. So this semester, I want to continue adding in small little things to create a better, more well-rounded lesson. Sometimes this sounds really difficult to do, especially when you're like, okay, I'm trying to teach pronunciation and vocabulary and grammar and writing and reading and listening and speaking, and it's a lot. But last semester, I did a cultural moment. So at the end of every class, I added in just like 5 minutes talking about culture. And over time, more and more culture seeped into my lessons. Of course, I did this on purpose, but I found that like switching my brain to focus on adding in little segments really helped. But this semester, I want to sprinkle in all of these different aspects. For example, I noticed at the end of last semester, a lot of my students were making the same pronunciation mistakes, like really small, really simple ones. So do I want to teach an entire class on pronunciation? No, but I want to maybe choose some vocabulary words that I know have those problem points. So that way, while we're talking about vocabulary, I can also just pause for a second and we'll just take 2 or 3 minutes and make sure they're getting that pronunciation correct. This is not an overhaul of my lessons. Instead, it's more about what things can I sprinkle in that will make my lesson a little bit more rounded. The next goals are all about administration. Yay, so fun. So I want to keep up with scores and keep up with grading. This is something that I really try to do every semester, and the semesters that I let it slide are not the good semesters. I just want to make sure I am consistently updating all of my attendance, all of my homework in an organized fashion. Of course, I take attendance every single week, but sometimes it's a little bit messy all over the place. I just want to make sure everything is clearly organized. I think this will also help if students ask me questions about their scores. At any moment, they can come up to me and say, hey, how am I doing on my participation? And I can tell them because I have all the data already figured out and already totaled up at the end of every week. For my next goal, and this is a very personal thing, is I want to always be 2 weeks ahead in my lesson planning. For me, this is way more a mental thing than it is actually like a physical thing. I just find that when I am 2 weeks ahead, I have peace of mind. I love knowing what's coming ahead as I'm teaching one class, but I also love knowing that, if I get sick, if something happens, I'm okay. I have a little bit of wiggle room. It just makes me feel a little bit panicked when I'm planning lessons just for the next week or just for that week. I don't like that feeling at all. So I really want to prioritize always being ahead, which it's hard to do. It's hard to prioritize being ahead when you have so many other things going on, especially at the beginning of the semester. Actually, you know what? At the beginning of the semester, at the middle, at the end, it's all busy. But I personally have so much going on. I am doing my PhD. I am still teaching. I'm making videos. So there's a lot going on. I just want to know that I am 2 weeks ahead. If something comes up, it's not a problem. And the last goal that I have is a little bit difficult to explain, I guess. I want to fall in love with teaching again. Now, I hesitate even saying that because it makes it sound like I don't love teaching right now. And that's not true. I think I've just been teaching for such a long time that it's really easy to go into autopilot. I get to the class, I teach the class, I go home, I know what I'm doing, I don't really feel nervous before classes. If there's a problem, I know how to solve it. If students aren't engaged, I know how to bring them back into the lesson. And I just remember when I first started teaching, oh my goodness, I was so bad at teaching. I don't think I really loved teaching for the first 2 years because I was just nervous. I would feel so nervous before going to class. I felt like I was going to throw up. Let's just be honest. I really was so nervous those first 2 years. But once I got over that and once I felt like, oh, okay, I know what I'm doing, I truly loved it. I would just feel so happy. I would feel so proud of myself when the class went well. I would feel so proud of my lesson plans when I had thought of a really creative idea and the students really responded to it. There were high highs and low lows. And now, so many years later, it's just evened out a little bit more, which is great. I mean, I am very thankful to not have those low lows. But at the same time, I kind of miss those high highs. And I also know there are a lot of transitions happening at my school. My school is transitioning from a 3-year school to a 4-year school. So in China, they don't really have associate degrees and bachelor degrees. Instead, they have like a 3-year degree and a 4-year degree. Basically, a 3-year degree is kind of like an associate's degree. It's not as high as a bachelor's degree. And in the past, my school was, I believe, the #1 3-year school in China. And now we are transitioning to a 4-year school. And with that comes all the red tape, comes all the paperwork, comes all the shifting. So over the last probably 2 semesters, I do feel like administration work has just kind of been seeping into my work, what I think about, what I spend time doing. And nobody likes doing that, right? I want to bring back a little bit of that spark, that love, that joy of teaching, even if that just means being more present and really looking for the everyday things that I love, appreciating the fact that I don't feel sick before I go to class, really enjoying my time with my students. So those are my goals, but this time, I don't want to just stop there. And if you're setting goals, I encourage you not to just to stop there as well. For each goal, I encourage you to go through and find out how you are going to accomplish this. So for my goal #1, build more rapport with students, I already know how I'm going to do that. Like I said, I made a whole video about this already. I also know that when I go to class, I don't want to talk with students only about classwork and schoolwork. Instead of saying, do you have any presentations to do this week? I want to ask them, what did you do on the weekend? What are your hobbies? Ask them more things about them rather than just talking about school. Sometimes my students only want to talk about school, which is fine. But sometimes I get in the habit then of only ever asking them about school, and I don't want to do that. I want to know who they are as a person, not just who they are as a student. So I already know how I'm going to accomplish that one. How am I going to learn all of their names in 2 weeks? I do already know how I'm going to do this one. Like I said, I have videos, I have all of my strategies, I have all of my techniques ready to go. For other things though, like adding in pronunciation and adding in culture, that's something that I have to add onto my list. Usually when I make a lesson, I have a list of things that I need to do first. You know, first I choose the theme, then I choose the vocabulary, then I choose the speaking exercises, then I assign the homework. I just need to add those onto my list to make sure I'm thinking about them in every lesson. I know how I can keep up with my attendance sheets. I set an alarm on my phone to make sure that I update them at the end of every week. I know how I can be 2 weeks ahead. It's by having designated lesson planning batching time, especially super batching. I've talked about that before in other videos. So I need to go through my list and know exactly how I am going to do these things. I think the only one that I'm not sure about is the last one, like how to really fall in love with teaching again. Maybe I can do what I said, like be more in the moment. Maybe I can challenge myself to find one beautiful thing in every single day. If you have any suggestions, please let me know. If that's something that you've experienced, or maybe you just have an idea, maybe I'll even make, you know what? Maybe I should make a challenge for myself and try to complete the challenge with a couple of different things I can do throughout the semester, just to kind of snap me out of the routine, the everyday monotony, and notice and appreciate all of those little things throughout this next semester. Honestly, I'm very excited for the next semester. As much as I am sad that the winter holiday is ending, I'm really excited. I'm excited to have freshmen. Freshman energy is unmatched. I always love this spring semester. There's just a different energy when you know that summer is coming at the end. I love my job so much. All of the things that I have written down as goals are things that will make me be a better teacher, that will make me give a better experience to my students. But also, I hope they're things that will just help me appreciate my job even more. Okay, I've been talking for a very long time, but thank you for coming along with me on this teacher talk. I hope you set your own goals. Maybe you don't set as many as I do. Some semesters I have way more, some semesters I have way less. Some of these semesters are like continuation goals. For example, keeping up with grading. That's something I put on my list almost every year. But I really encourage you to find new goals and set new intentions. That way you can always make your next semester better than the one before. If you'd like to watch more videos all about how to be a better ESL teacher, or how to make your lessons more engaging, more practical, more useful for your students, you can always check out the other videos on the channel. You can also check out atlasteaching.com, the website, for more tips and ideas. And you can check back here for weekly videos. Please, if you have any ideas about how I can fall in love with teaching again, please leave those in the comments down below. I would love to get some other ideas to add in. You can also check out the videos I mentioned about how to build rapport with your students and how to learn students' names. But that's all for today. I will see you next time. Bye.